Before we start, I want to make it very clear. This video is spoiler-free. The movie isn't even out yet in the US.
USA! USA!
So I'm avoiding any spoilers just like you guys. I'm here to cover an issue igniting flames to the Sonic community. The biggest enemy to Sonic fans across the globe. Critics. That's right, Sonic Movie 2 officially had its premiere event in the UK, and the reviews are flying in. What's surprising is that they're just as negative as the first Sonic movie's reviews, which is shocking.
NANI?
And most of the major reputable outlets are the ones fortunate enough to see it and put their reviews in there. So these aren't random nobody's opinions. Some reviews you guys will like and agree with. Some will send you into a fit of rage, punching holes in the wall everywhere like it made a joke about your wife.
Wow!
So there's a ton to go over, and I'll start by going through some of these reviews. And remember, 90% of these are already spoiler-free, and I'm obviously not gonna blurt out a spoiler if I see one.
Fred Weasley dies on page 637.
Let's first start at review aggregate, Rotten Tomatoes. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is currently sitting at a 63% as of the time of recording this. And future Jaden here, there's an update for this score later in the video, but it's definitely not an improvement. Keep in mind, this score will fluctuate either up or down, depending on how the rest of the reviews come in this next month. So, to feel out the temperature and just dip our toes into the water, let's start with a more lightly critical review from Variety. Then we can dive headfirst into the super low scores. And I'm telling you, it's gonna be real hard not to crush your screen with your bare hands after seeing a couple of these absolutely brainless critics' takes. And again, not all of them, just a couple. Again, this video is entirely spoiler-free, and if I come across any spoilers myself, I will 100% not show or share any of that info. I didn't get an early screening invite, so I'm hiding from these spoilers just like you guys. So, before we get into the first review from Variety, let's hear a quick spot from today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Royal CD Keys. The story is 100% true, by the way, but growing up literally below the poverty line, I couldn't afford any full-price games, so I often used various key services to get games for an affordable price without piracy. And today's sponsor, Royal CD Keys, is one of those key sites. They even have a ton of Sonic games on there. Look, I'm literally buying one right now. They have a super high Trustpilot score and great customer service. And literally, this is all written by me. They didn't even give me a copy read. They only said I had to announce their €50 weekly giveaway they do, which is pretty cool. So go check out Royal CD Keys and use the code SONICSHOW for 10% off, and it lets them know I sent ya. All right, so let's start with Variety's review. It's titled, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 Review. Knuckles and Tails join the Sega mascot in Rush Job sequel. Rush Job?
Huh?
I'm sure you can tell from the headline, but there's definitely going to be a mix of some negative opinions here. So let's just jump into it. Well, that was fast. The first Sonic the Hedgehog movie opened in February 2020, in spite of, or maybe in some strange way, because of fan pushback to the live-action movie's initial CG character design, it turned out to be far better than anyone expected. The bar is exasperatingly low for video game adaptations. And yes, I did struggle to read exasperatingly. The blue blur seemed to be racing towards some kind of box office record when the hit. Fast forward 2 years and we already have a sequel, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, that takes what was endearing about the original, in a word, personality, and renders it generic in a hurry. And can you hear it? That's the sound of Sonic fans storming up in rage over that last sentence. Also, it doesn't even make sense. Sonic Movie 1 was painfully generic.
Bruh.
But let's hear them out. You guys also have to consider that these are from the UK premiere, and the British are by far the saltiest group of people on this beautiful green and blue earth. So they are naturally more angry and hateful than the average person. That's a joke, by the way. UK people, don't be offended. You're my second highest demographic. I have to appeal to you. A lot of this review has recaps of the story, mentioning specific beats they liked, and I'm going to skip that part entirely, as it's not important to the review and more of a possible spoiler to you guys. So next the review goes, an hour and a half would have been a perfectly fine runtime. I don't know why I read it like that. Whereas at 2 hours and change, Sonic 2 wears out its welcome well before it turns into yet another phone-it-in franchise entry. The kind where storms gather, a column of fluorescent light shoots up in the sky, and everything becomes apocalyptic. We've come to expect that kind of world-threatening gloom from Marvel movies. Technically, it all goes back to the original Ghostbusters, a death the movie recognizes even as it serves up its own version of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, which is referencing the Death Egg robot we've seen from all the recent trailers and spots. But it gets tiresome when practically every kiddie movie puts our existence in jeopardy. It would have been plenty effective to focus just on keeping the Wachowski family together, which I do understand, these save the world plots can feel very samey, but I'd argue the first Sonic movie was a smaller scale. The entire plot of the first movie is Sonic wipes out the power, and because of that, this small task force is after Sonic, and he has to get his rings back. That's literally the entire plot. No end of the world or anything. For the sequel, it only makes sense to go big with it. Then, the next one, it'd be cool to go kinda artsy and weird with it, you know? That's always the best way to do a third movie, but that's off topic for now. I myself am tired of copy-paste Marvel plots, and no, stand down Marvel fans. I'm not saying all Marvel stuff is like that, but there's definitely an infamous formula that we all know when we see it. A more positive excerpt from this review that you guys might like is, it should be said that the first 90 minutes of Sonic 2 are pretty clever, thanks to all the creative ways the screenwriters devised to honor the games without derailing the plot. These include Tails showing up in a bright red biplane, and the classic Green Hill Zone theme serving as Tom's ringtone. And I included these because these are both things we've seen from the footage Paramount has officially put out in the trailers. The ending of the review has no spoilers and I think summarizes their points best. Sonic 2 ends much as the first one did, with hints that this blue hedgehog will buzzsaw his way through more adventures. Stick through the credits to find out which franchise character Paramount and Sega promised to introduce next. A word of advice to the studio: don't rush it. Audiences were appreciative when you took the time to redo the design of the CG Sonic, and they'll wait as long as it takes to do right by characters they've already dedicated so many hours to playing at home. And I haven't gone through all the reviews yet, as I was saving most of them for this video. But a common theme I've seen through the couple I've read up until now is everyone saying it feels rushed. Now, it's not clear whether they're saying that because they know the first one came out a little over 2 years ago, or if it's because it visually looks rushed. We'll have to wait and see, since this is being repeated across literally all the reviews I've read. So, before we get to the next one, there's something you gotta think about with these. I know a lot of the opinions you're hearing in these reviews will make some of you really mad. But it's important to remember, I'm just the messenger, and these are not my opinions. I know it probably seems obvious to most of you, but a very, very small select of you, honestly, I don't even know what's going on up there. And I mean like up there, the brain. And this is a very, very small amount of you, but I think perhaps nothing. Some people will even dislike the video because they dislike the review they're hearing. And I didn't write it, I promise. If I worked for Variety, I would be making way more money than I am now. So I've never really blatantly asked for it like this, but drop a fat thumbs up. It helps Raccoon Man a lot with the machines and helps offset the brainlets who think these are my opinions so that this video can swim a little. So the next review is from Empire, another very popular entertainment outlet. Their review starts with, films based on video games infamously don't have a great track record. There's often talk of a curse. But Sonic the Hedgehog, the first live-action take on Sega's spiky Speedy Boy in Blue, released in 2020. It managed to overcome initial fan backlash and mixed reviews to become a rare success, at least at the box office. Never mind that the film was fairly generic and forgettable family fodder. In brutal commercial terms, Sonic is officially the most successful film based on a video game ever. Now, it makes a bid for a cinematic universe with the sequel, and a third film is already in the works, with at least one spin-off TV show. Which I'm mostly including this recap because they all kind of begin like this. And Empire basically hit all the same spots as the other introductions. So you did it, Empire, round of applause. You're the only intro that matters. They continue with, curse or no curse, a franchise is burgeoning. And I've heard this word more in the past 2 weeks than I have my entire life. I remember a couple videos ago, I was like, I've never heard this word before. Since then, I cannot stop hearing burgeoning. Why is everyone saying burgeoning? And so in every respect, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is really just more of the same. Steered by largely the same creative team as before, This is simply more fairly generic and forgettable family fodder. A Saturday morning cartoon with the Hollywood budget targeted primarily at an audience of 8-year-olds. Hey, don't forget us fat autistic adults too. We have rights, you know. It's still colorful and kooky. The CG character designs are still jarringly cartoonish in their live action surroundings, and the jokes are still, on the whole, bad. The significant differences are the addition of Tails, voiced by Colleen O'Shaughnessy, who also voices the character in the video game, emphasizing the kiddiness of the whole affair, and Knuckles, voiced by Idris Elba, who's like a pound shop Drax the Destroyer. Which I don't know if the reviewers regarding that is a positive or negative thing, not gonna lie. Next paragraph has spoils, so we're gonna skip over that. But under it is their big epic quote about it being generic and forgettable family fodder in giant text, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too worried about. In the first Sonic movie, they changed Sonic's disgusting generic Hollywood design to a modified version of his iconic game look. Well, they didn't change the story, and I liked Sonic movie a lot, but at the end of the day, it's just a somewhat plain kids movie, and I wouldn't have really cared if I wasn't a Sonic fan. However, this one seems to be leaning into it being based on the games and showing love and respect to those, so I can't imagine this is worse, TBH. But again, my opinion doesn't matter because I haven't seen the movie yet. Let's get through this, then get to a more positive review because I need to cleanse my palate. And whatever screen you're watching this on is dangerously close to cracking. So The Guardian ends with a small excerpt. Sonic's second outing is a little more than a half-baked, half-term distraction tool, though Jim Carrey's outrageously committed performance nearly saves the day. And I've had enough of it. Goodbye, Guardian. See ya. Now, let's sprinkle in a little positivity. These guys aren't established film critics, so they aren't listed on Rotten Tomatoes review list. But Sonic Stadium got invited to the premiere and made a non-spoiler review. So let's get into the first excerpt from that, as it's going to be a nice palate cleanse, because after this is the real negative one. Okay, so let's start. You'd be forgiven for wondering if the success of the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie was a total fluke. After all, were it not for the intense community feedback and eventually the artistic talents of Tyson Hesse, the Blue Blur's big screen debut would have surely flopped. But with a car crash swiftly avoided and the fanbase on side as a result, it would have been easy for Paramount to rest on its laurels. Is that like a British thing? And phone it in for the sequel, especially with the introduction of rival Knuckles the Echidna to automatically guarantee fan support. They continue, thankfully there is no need to worry about such a cynical follow-up, as Sonic the Hedgehog not only goes out of its way to respect the fans' time by focusing the majority of its action on the characters they cared most about, but it does so with a jam-packed story that is much improved over and builds upon the prequel. This is a rare movie that is both an excellent video game adaptation and a sequel that's better than its predecessor. And this is quite high praise and makes me more excited as we're both in the Venn diagram of hardcore Sonic fans. But to be completely fair, I wouldn't expect a Sonic fan site to go, it was just okay. But they were very fair with their review of the first Sonic movie, even going to talk about the very formulaic plot, which was my main issue. So, this hyper excites me. It should also be noted that while these are both Sonic Stadium reviews, they are written by two different people, so their perspectives and criticisms are certainly different. They go on to say, the most interesting thing when watching Sonic 2 is discovering that despite the huge attention that Sonic, Tails, and Eggman are rightfully given, or rightly, the filmmakers managed to find plenty of room for the human characters to have meaningful involvement in the movie. Tom, James Marsden, and Maddie, Tina Sumter? I'm pretty sure it's Tika. Why'd they write Tina? Wachowski spend their time in a B-plot that involves the wedding of Maddie's sister, Rachel, Tasha Rothwell. I don't know if they got that one right too. Which is inevitably disrupted by Sonic's world-saving antics. This is something we saw from the final trailer, which I covered here. I'll read the next excerpt. I always struggle with that word, excerpt. But I don't want to read too much of this review after that because it summarizes a lot of scenes that I want to leave to you as a surprise. So after that, they write, rather than be a forgettable side story that distracts from the Sonic Knuckles action, the Hawaii-based wedding ends up becoming surprisingly pivotal to the main plot, with Tom and Maddie giving plenty of room to contribute to Sonic's adventure. And it's rather well written too, with Sumter and Rothwell in particular being handed some great comedic action to work with. If you enjoyed Rachel's loudmouth antics in the first Sonic movie, you're going to really love her character in the sequel. That's not to say there isn't some storytelling turbulence in the movie. While a lot of the sequel's key concepts and characters needed little explaining, owing to the groundwork laid in the first film, and I removed a spoiler part here, but there are some areas that stand out. Some clunkiness in scenes where the filmmakers clearly realized that additional exposition was necessary for audiences to understand what's going on. These moments feel a little tacked on, but with so many different story threads going on in Sonic 2, it's difficult to think of other ways in which the producers could have handled this. And this is a problem that Edgar Wright had to deal with when making Scott Pilgrim, which is a film from 6 books. And the 6th one wasn't even finished. But Scott Pilgrim ended up being slept on by reviewers and turned out to be a cult classic among us internet losers. And yes, before you comment, I said Among Us in a different context. Sue me! So I think as a Sonic fan, there's a lot you'll like from this. I'll read the end of their review, then get into the polar opposite. The source that hated this movie in almost every way possible. It's actually kind of funny. I think their mom might be like dating Azuka or something. So Sonic Stadium ends with, as a Sonic fan, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 has everything you could ask for. It's an action-packed experience, Joe Rogan, that puts the focus squarely on the mainline characters that you care about, with spot-on characterizations that draw you in to the constant rivalry between Sonic and Knuckles, and the friendship between Sonic and Tails. With a satisfying final act that will give you goosebumps till the very end, with some well-timed chuckles and game references in between. Despite some narrative wobbles, it does the characters justice, it does the Sonic universe justice, and it does the franchise justice. Blue justice, you might say. Amazing end. I do think that was pretty clever. I will say though, and this is my view from the trailer, and maybe it's because I'm 23, but some of the jokes seemed, a lot of them didn't blow me away. They didn't have me laughing. While a lot of the ones from the trailers are funny, there's some that definitely lean towards the cringe side of the spectrum. I know you guys hate the word cringe, but I don't know how to describe it. Unfunny, painful to hear, disrupting my brain. So they scored the movie a 9 out of 10. Now again, they didn't do a score for the first one, so I don't know how they'd compare, but a very high score for Sonic 2 regardless. Now, let's get into the darkest of reviews. One that will make your skin crawl and make you want to do things not even your therapist should have to deal with hearing about. And that's Little White Lies, a top critic reviewer. And to give you just a glimpse of what we're in for, the tagline on Rotten Tomatoes is the shortest of anyone's, and it's just, a cold money-making machine and nothing more. Now, as you can imagine, this angered Twitter. They were furious. How could someone dislike the movie that I haven't even seen yet? Well, let's get into it, as odds are you guys will finally relate to the angry Twitter people. Which I am an angry Twitter person at Sonic_show. That was a shameless plug, but I'm addicted and I need more people to feed my addiction. So let's get into Little White Lies review. The first excerpt we'll start with is, there's a joke where people say, this film's plot could have been written on the back of a napkin. Yet for Sonic 2, a napkin seems like the equivalent of a multi-volumed antiquarian tome, as there is so little substance to this depressingly rote endeavor. And I'm just gonna be open. Unscripted, this is one of the most obnoxious things I've ever read.
Dear President.
Yes, more than that. It sees the punchline spouting blue spiny mammal, who's basically the satirical Poochie from The Simpsons taken at face value, up to his old monkey shines in rural Seattle, where he is taken to independent crime fighting. It's just the writing, Now, I started here because literally the first 2 paragraphs are nothing but them whining about, they gave me a spoiler warning. How can there be spoilers for a stupid kids movie? Stupid, stupid, stupid! And it's because you're right. It's a kids movie. And yeah, as someone who's not a kid, seeing which characters actually show up and if our theories were wrong or right is all very fun for us. There's spoilers because we're not kids. That's the point. So this is just embarrassing because like, if you're a movie reviewer, you know, obviously spoilers can be for smaller things, and not every movie has to be No Country for Old Men. Another excerpt is, the rest of the movie is fill-in-blanks, filmmaking where all elements clearly could have been done with a few more months, if not years in the oven. The script feels like a poor first draft, the performances are phoned in, even Carrie is just shticking hard for a paycheck, desperately attempting to find some subtle variation on his standard arsenal of gurns, gurgles, and wacky enunciations. But he rarely, if ever, hits the comic bullseye. And if you thought that was bad, that's not even the worst part of the review. Worst of all is the quality of the computer graphics, which in many cases looks incomplete, or at least not ready for audience consumption. What? As the animated characters dash or engage in complex interactions with a real environment, their figures appear blocky and indistinct, as if not properly rendered. The shoddy visuals exemplify much of this film's low-bar quality control. But it's bizarre to see a Hollywood product looking this ugly. I mean, is it? Did you not see Cats? One sequence in which Sonic and Knuckles are conversing on a beach after throwing sand over each other. It looks like the effects artists have literally forgotten key parts of the animation. Oh no! The grim reality is that the makers know this is Sonic 2 and no one is really going to care.
Oh my god, do I have to keep reading this? This review sucks.
Now, I thought the CG looked great from everything shown so far, but let's give the benefit of the doubt and say maybe in motion it might look rushed. I mean, this movie did have an extremely fast and efficient production time, but they didn't have anything here that needed some high-level entire reworking like the first one's design, so kind of makes sense that it's faster. Plus, with how honestly generic the first one's plot is, they basically have endless possibilities of what they could do in this sequel. And no, that wasn't an intentional pun, but it worked out. So this movie, in all indications, will still be a family kids movie, but with the addition of a lot of content specifically for Sonic fans to enjoy. I'm not expecting some ultra dark Sonic beheading Robotnik scene. And yes, I'm very aware of what I signed up for. It's a PG. I'll read the ending excerpt from the Little White Lies review. In a film where literally the only good bit is when Sonic falls over and says, "Ow, my pelvis." A pre-game spoiler warning is bad form to say the least. The best way to make sure arrogant audiences don't spoil your movie is to not treat them with borderline contempt. Which is such a back and forth point. Do you want it to be a kid's movie or not? Like, round of applause for this dude. It appears 99% of their critiques are, I was wanting Pulp Fiction, but this is just some baby Cocomelon garbage. Next time, have the courage to just kill off Tails. So yeah, regardless of me seeing this movie or not, I'm just gonna straight up say this review is trash. Not because it's negative, but because it's negative without any reason. All the criticisms here make me go, are we talking about the same movie?
Yeah.
Also, update! That's right, Future Jaden here. Morning after editing, and we're now at 10 reviews, whoa. And you guys won't like to hear this, but the score didn't go up at all. It actually dropped to a 60 now, but remember, there's only 10 reviews now. There was 8 before, now there's 10. Expect this score to fluctuate for the next couple months. There's 2 new reviews, one is positive, one is negative. One is the South Bingshilling Morning Post, who upon further research actually seemed pretty genuine. And the other one is some dude's blog called the Jam Report, and it didn't even have the HTTPS security certificate. You always see it in the top left. It's like the lockbox. It makes it like, yeah, this website's secure. I go to the Jam Report and Opera's like, this dude's trying to steal your data. But these two both aren't some massive organization. I think the latter isn't even an organization at all. So that's important to remember. As more reviews come in, you'll notice the credentials lower significantly. Rotten Tomatoes discerns these by putting top critic near the ones from the big sites you're already familiar with. So that helps out weed out these dudes literally in their mom's basement just writing whatever. Even my website, sonicmovie2.com, has HTTPS security. So last, let's cover the Hollywood Reporter's review, as they are respected as one of the top teams in movie coverage business, and they officially partner and work with most of these big movies releases for exclusive coverage. So let's just get into it. The first excerpt I'll read from their review is, overstuffed with frantic action and framed by Sonic's wisecracking commentary, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 will appeal to family audiences seeking holiday distractions. What holiday? Even if it doesn't break new ground elaborating the franchise's sprawling universe of intersecting characters and plot lines. Which is fair. They continue with, director Jeff Fowler, returning for the sequel, minds his enthusiasm for the Sonic games, but mostly resists any misguided inclination to mimic the franchise's famously manic gameplay, with the exceptions of a few satisfying matchups between Sonic and Knuckles or Dr. Robotnik and his menacing drone army. As the evil scheming genius, Carrie relies on an array of facial tics, enhanced by an outsized mustache, and erratic body language characteristic of the expertly timed physical humor that he perfected over a series of similarly outlandish comedic roles. Just reading this is exhausting. Another reason I don't want to be considered a journalist. Meanwhile, Schwartz nails the animated hedgehog's snarky, impudent attitude and unrestrained thirst for thrills, even if Sonic's frequently frantic tone grows increasingly wearying. Which, trust me, Ben, even though you're putting on a character and I'm not, I get told the annoying voice thing constantly, so it's fine. Don't let the people get to you, Ben. You have beautiful vocal cards and throat game is on point. And I skipped all the synopsis parts because the goal here is to avoid spoilers. Oh. Next they write, together they set a furious pace that Marsden and Sumter attempt to match. But Tom and Maddie consistently return to emphasizing the importance of friends and family as a method to manage Sonic's youthful impulses. It's a strategy that directly influences their unruly young charge, inspiring him to reach out to Tails and Knuckles with a similar gesture of acceptance. And straight up, I don't know what that means. Like, it sounds nice, but it sounds like, oh, they all learned their lesson. It sounds like the end of a My Little Pony episode. And with dozens more characters and plot lines available in the Sonic universe, it's likely they'll be back again to pass along similar life lessons and their ceaseless search for adventure. A pretty fair review, I'd say. And again, I'm saying that as someone who has not seen the movie, so it could literally be all cap. One thing I think a lot of you aren't aware of, but I have heard this mentioned between friends, but this movie features visual production from Sega Sammy, original film, I don't know what that is, maybe it's a typo, probably not, Marza Animation Planet, and Blur Studios. And you likely know those last two. Marza is the current animation giant they use for game cutscenes, and Blur's the former one. Now on more of an assistant role for them, Blur is a high-level team. Their Halo 2 anniversary cutscenes from, I believe 2015, blew my mind. And they've likely only increased in quality since then. I might cover more reviews in a month or so once the dust settles and we can look at what the final score will be after everyone's written theirs. And I do think it'll go up, with the original only sitting at 63%, but who knows? I mean, it did go down last update. I've seen a lot of people try to minimize these scores by saying, who cares about Rotten Tomatoes? But Rotten Tomatoes is an aggregate of all reviews. So if the score is low, it's indicative of a majority of movie reviewers saying, this is Garbo. Which, by the way, that's not being said here. These are mostly respectable reviews, and keyword mostly. But just because something isn't positive doesn't mean it's biased and unobjective. Also, people think game reviewers have a weird bias against Sonic games, and that's fine, but I refuse to allow the narrative that movie reviewers have a secret opposition to Sonic as a brand, because this is definitely crossing tinfoil hat territory. I think the score will settle somewhere in the 60s to the 80s, and I do think this is an appropriate score, again, as someone who hasn't seen it. You're probably sick of me talking, and shoot, I forgot to self-promo again. I guess I'm just gonna have to save it up for a rainy day. So, make sure you're subbed and belled, specifically set to all, right? That's what the bell matters. Since I don't upload much, and I cover only the freshest and most interesting Sonic news out there. Thanks for rocking with Raccoon Nation, a name that just kinda stuck, I guess. Lots of love for the continuous and constant support. And peace! Peace to you all!